Just quickly go through the newspaper headlines from a few select publications around the globe. Let's start with The Independent. It has the main image here of New Jersey's Republican Governor Chris Christie. His office is surrounded by a scandal. The paper asking if Mr. Christie's road to the White House is closed for good.
Moving on to the international New York Times. It's reporting from the CES electronics show in Las Vegas. It asks just why consumers aren't getting as excited about the big wearable technology trend as some of the makers.
Gulf News reports that India has turned down an offer from Google to help voters see if they're registered ahead of May's general election. Apparently, they're afraid voters' private details may be shared.
The South China Morning Post suggests that Hong Kong's cash reserves may run out within 20 years because of its ageing population. The warning is expected to feature in next month's budget speech by the city's financial secretary.
And the Financial Times says, before Osama bin Laden's assassination, US intelligence experts were worried Al-Qaeda may later create online avatars of him to continue spreading his message. Now, let's look through these stories with Mark Davies, who is CEO of the strategy consultancy at Camberton. Mark, thank you very much
good morning.
For coming in. Good morning to you. The United States loves a redemption story, and if it can forgive a president for dimpled chads in Florida, if it can forgive a president for not having sex with that woman, that's what Bill Clinton said, Chris Christie can recover from this.
Well, he can. I think it depends entirely on whether he's actually linked to what happened, because he's come out very quickly, straight away, he's taken action, and he said, this is my staff, and I'm embarrassed that people who have got involved in my inner circle have acted like this. If it comes out that actually he knew about it, he was aware, he was somehow involved, then that's probably curtains for him. And there was a very interesting discrepancy yesterday in what he said, because having said that he was embarrassed, he gave a television interview, and he'd said that he had only found out that morning. And in the television interview, he said, and I've had a couple of sleepless nights thinking about this. And if somebody digs a little bit deeper into that and discovers that he has known about this for longer, and that his real embarrassment is that it's come out, then I think it could be curtains.
Has no one else picked up on that?
It was mentioned by Rush Limbaugh on his radio program, but it hasn't been covered by the press in any great detail.
The thing is, 2016 may have been a no-go for him anyway, because if Hillary Clinton wants that nomination for the Democrats, you'd have thought that she would be a strong favourite. So
I think she will be. I mean, there's no question about that. But in terms of who is the best challenger, then I don't think there's any doubt since Superstorm Sandy, where Christie was shown very well, he could show that he could reach across the political divide. He is clearly the strongest candidate out there for the Republicans as things stand. But I don't think that he'd be able to survive being linked to that kind of dirty tricks. This idea that aides can go and do something that the person is shot, it reminds me of the Damien McBride story here in the UK. It seems highly unlikely that your aides can run around and organise this kind of trickery without the person at the top knowing about it. The question, I guess, is if you don't know about it, you don't know what your staff are doing. If you do know about it, then you're involved, and being implicated is clearly not a good thing.
Okay, well, let's move on now to the international New York Times. Talking about wearable tech. How wearable is it? Is it fashionable?
It's not very wearable.
Look at that picture there.
But look, you must remember back to the time when mobile phones started. They weren't really mobile either. The great big bricks you would see people walking around with. And we used to laugh about them. But I remember only a few years ago seeing an iPad for the first time, and my immediate reaction to the iPad was, what on earth would anybody really want with that? It's just a big version of a phone. And of course now I walk around everywhere with mine. So the fact that this stuff at the moment looks, as it says, more geek than chic, and that consumers are shunning it, I don't think is any kind of indicator that as it progresses and becomes much smarter, when they produce Google Glass like your glasses are now, Adnan, then people will be using them. If you've got to put something on that is a big, big frame and you feel more like you're playing some kind of virtual game, then of course you're not going to wear it walking down the street. But that's going to develop. Of course it's going to develop. These things always do.
Yes, I completely agree. Actually, on an unrelated subject, I was looking at new glasses the other day, just a couple of days ago.
Very nice.
No, I tell you, the optician showed me a £350 pair of glasses made in Germany, which apparently the Queen wears. They were so cool. If these things look like that, I totally agree with you. Everybody's going to be wearing them. By the way, I said no, I couldn't afford it.
Of course you said you could. The Queen's. You just
Yes, exactly. The Queen wears them, not the Queen's actual glasses. Right, Gulf News. I tell you, first of all, before we go on to this Google story in India, Gulf News has this poll that only 14% see Rahul Gandhi as the Indian PM. Now, that is very interesting, I must say, because he, of course, part of the Gandhi dynasty and Congress, big hopes of the general election.
Yeah,
now, Google...
Really
apparently, if you're on Gmail, they follow keywords that you email, and then you get certain
You must
adverts.
have come across
know.
this.
But I don't have a Google Mail account.
But
Because of
even
that.
without Google Mail, if you search for something on Google, do you not notice how the adverts that appear for the next few weeks are all about the thing you search
That's interesting.
for?
I haven't noticed that. But what we should remind people is that we're saying that the Indian Election Commission has rejected an offer from Google to make it easier for Indian voters to see if they're registered to vote in the general election.
Yeah. And India have turned it down on the grounds that they are concerned
Exactly.
that
That's right.
that's almost a way in for the American government as they see it, which in itself is a branding disaster for Google.
That's right. The NSA
They
has done
start
this,
to be
obviously,
seen
clearly.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a whole post-Snowden people seeing Google as being some kind of far from being a do no evil company. It's some kind of organisation that allows the government to infiltrate our lives. That's how the Indian government looked at it. I think more broadly, I think this could be the start of a backlash against the way in which Google does infiltrate your life.
Because of these incredibly sophisticated algorithms, which
It's
is
the
what
algorithm.
allows them to...
But what it means is that
really
even if you
gain
look at just search for something that you just want to know more about it, and then suddenly you're targeted with consumer opportunities that revolve around that subject. And they may be of no interest to you at all, and they can be very annoying. I certainly myself find them quite annoying.
They can be
I know you
amazing.
clearly don't because you haven't noticed them yet. But now that you have, now you've been told about them, you'll
I
find
will
them
be
annoying.
looking
going
for them.
But in
forward.
the broader context, would you say that this has anything to do with the current spat over the Indian diplomat in America?
Well, I think clearly it will be linked because when there are two countries that are having a row about something, any small issue between them will be linked to it. I suspect that if this had happened last week, the same story would have come out. I think this is more about where Google is seen today by governments and by individuals.
Okay, let's move on to the South China Morning Post now, which has this rather sort of shocking headline saying that Hong Kong's cash reserves, which currently stand at $95 billion US, could run out in 20 years' time. Some people putting this down to sort of doomsday scenarios and just scaremongering, but the point being raised here is it's all down to the ageing population.
Yeah, this is a really strange story, I think, because 20 years seems to be a long time in the future to be talking about cash reserves drying up. If it were oil reserves or some commodity that can't in some way be reproduced, I'm not suggesting that you want to get the presses rolling necessarily, but there are ways of dealing with cash reserve problems, which is not true of other things. So it's a strange story. Funnily enough, it reminded me of the Y2K. Do you remember the Millennium Bug?
Yeah.
Which wasn't.
That everybody said, the world's going to fall apart, computers can't cope with this, and we're going to go from 1999 to 2000 and everything will stop. And this seemed to me to be the same kind of story. Somewhere out there in the future, in a way that we can't really explain to you, there's a big problem looming.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't buy it. I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but it seems to me to be a very, very strange thing to be scaremongering about at this early stage.
And speaking of scaremongering, we've got 1 minute left. A virtual Osama bin Laden. I can't understand why he didn't record a whole load of messages and just disseminate to all his followers so they could then put them
Well, I
out
think
there.
he probably has. There's plenty that he's recorded. I think the issue is now whether, again, with developing technology, you can have an avatar of bin Laden and he can stand up forevermore. This is what the US was worried about in 2008. What is interesting from my perspective is that it doesn't actually require him to be alive or dead for that to happen. If the technology develops, whether the Americans have killed bin Laden or not, the avatar can be used going forward.
Which is a terrifying prospect, isn't it?
It is
for security agencies the world over.
It is a frightening prospect, yeah.
Okay, Mark Davies, thanks very much indeed. Really,
Thanks.
really kind of you to wake up so early in
Not
the
at
morning and join us here on BBC World News. Don't forget, there'll be breakfast for our domestic viewers at the top of the hour, but from Alice and from me for the moment, that's it. But of course, we'll be back and do it all again at 6 o'clock as it is GMT. Bye-bye.